Welcome to the Dr. Diane Show, where we explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. With over 20 years of expertise as a mindset warrior, perspective shifter, and unshakable optimist, I am dedicated to helping you reach your wildest dreams in business, health, performance, and relationships. Learn about the power of thought and how it shapes your life to take risks, change careers, find love, go on adventures, and live passionately with me, Dr. Diane. Get ready for revolutionary ways of thinking, being, and creating an amazing life. The Dr. Diane Show starts now. Hello, everyone. I am Dr. Diane Hayden, and you are listening to the Dr. Diane Show on Transformation Talk Radio. Stay with us for the next hour, where we will explore revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul. Each time on the Dr. Diane Show, we will have experts from around the country discussing cutting-edge topics on longevity medicine, natural health, mindset, and soul purpose to help you shift your perspective and become a mindset warrior like me. I'm excited to have with me today Mindy DiPietro. She has been the CEO at Aesthetic Treatment Center in Naples, Florida, where she led the development and execution of the spa's business strategy and ever-growing vision. She is now the first practitioner to bring the NES health system to Naples. She utilizes this innovative technology and nutritional support to naturally increase your quality of life. Mindy guides you to reestablish trust in your body and helps you to unlock your body's natural healing abilities. A graduate of the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, Mindy DiPietro began her career as a speech and language pathologist in the Collier County Public School System, where she worked closely with her patients to analyze, identify, treat, and help prevent communication disorders. So welcome, Mindy. Thanks for being with me today. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Awesome. So I wanted to start with talking a little bit about your background. You've done so many amazing things. That's why I love talking to you, because you've always got something new to like introduce me to. We're going to get into a lot of that later today, but let's talk about how you got involved in the holistic spa industry and going from, obviously being a speech pathologist to that is a little bit of a jump. So I think people would be interested to hear, how you made that transition.
It is. Well, you know how one thing leads to another. I was a speech pathologist, and my daughter became really ill when she was young. She was about 14 months old and kind of had this mystery issue, which turned out to be a disorder with her immune system, which obviously, eventually led me to a lot of the things I do now. And I needed a more flexible schedule. So I went to sell Mary Kay Cosmetics and ended up driving a pink Cadillac. And I learned so much there. Speech pathology tells you nothing about business. You don't have any classes about business. So there were some great mentors there, and they had great training. I had a lovely time, drove a pink Cadillac, very, very fun. And I just learned a lot of communication and business skills there. But eventually that kind of ran its course. My daughter was well, she's an adult now and has graduated college and has her own business. And, fortunately that story had a super happy ending and everything's great. But I started teaching yoga, and I just went to a resort spa to teach 2 yoga classes. That's all I wanted to do. And I ended up, they asked me if I wanted to manage their retail area. And so I did that. And then one thing led to another, and I ended up being a spa director eventually of other properties and owning my own businesses. The resort spa was pretty intense. I had 3 children at home at the time, and I didn't, I wasn't able to do that full time. But it was another stepping stone along the way, because I was introduced to some kind of new products and new therapies that I found so interesting and so beneficial to people. So I just continued on that path, even though I've owned day spas, built out medical spas for people, owned my own. I keep growing and gravitating more and more and more towards natural health and towards bioenergetic things, because there are so many problems that you can never get to the root of, but the root of that problem is that it's bioenergetic in nature, or it might be gut health in nature. Our cells need energy, and it's really interesting where our cells get energy from. So this is like the key. To me, this is the key, and I'm having so much success with it.
That's awesome. That is awesome. It's so interesting. I literally just had a guest on a couple weeks ago who started the conversation with him. How did you get involved in natural health? He's a supplement formulator, and what drew him to that was because he had children that were sick, and he kept taking them to traditional doctors and they couldn't figure out what it was. So, I mean, there's so many stories like that, whether it's either, personal stories of you as an individual had a problem that you couldn't solve through, you know, conventional medicine. And so you turn to
Right.
natural alternatives, or you have a child like your situation or his situation. And it's just, I just love those stories because, though things like that, when things like that happen, it makes us realize why it's so important to get to the root cause of what it is, right?
Right.
Instead of just putting
Right.
a band-aid on it, like, okay, oh, here's your symptom, this drug will fix this symptom or whatever. No, that's okay, great. Maybe it might, alleviate that symptom, but then it's going to cause something else. You want to figure out what is causing that symptom in the first place. Um, so I love it. I mean, I love that you've gone from the holistic spa industry now into bioenergetics, and we're going to talk more about that. So how did you first discover the company that you work with is called NES Health, by the way?
Yes.
And how did you even discover them?
Well, I discovered them because just serendipity. It was just a coincidence. A friend met a practitioner and said, "You have got to meet this guy." And it was right around the beginning of COVID. And so he came and he did an assessment and a treatment, and I was blown away. I mean, I was blown away with the results of the assessment, the quickness of the assessment, the accuracy of the assessment. And you've had the assessment, so
Yeah, we're going to talk about that.
you know that things come up in that assessment that I would never know. And then that, I think, becomes the answer to the issue of whether it's credible or not, because it it works for you. We assess so many levels in this scan, but it finds things that you would maybe never tell anybody, or you struggled with in the past, or you're struggling with now. So it's very, very amazing. And another thing I wanted to say about that is I had students when I was a young speech pathologist. Autism was on the rise, and I had a lot of autistic students. And again, that was an issue that didn't, there seemed to be no solution. There were therapies, they didn't work very well. There were remedies, there was a lot of holistic stuff coming around the bend. But one thing that people didn't look at is how are autistic children processing energy in their bodies. And now that I've studied this, I really think that is a key to what's going on in those little bodies, that their energetic system is not functioning properly. So I'm looking forward to exploring that as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, much needed for sure. Definitely. So let's talk a little bit about what exactly is it? Like, what is the NES bioenergetic system?
So I think people are most familiar with things like acupuncture, where we have meridians. In yoga, we talk about chakras. Um, in allopathic medicine or conventional medicine, we don't talk about that a whole lot, but we have energy pathways running through our bodies. And they have even actually found that what are called chakras and meridians really are biological pathways as well. It's really super, super fascinating. And they're pathways that stem cells travel along. So very, very, very interesting.
Yep, that's cool. And so, okay, so people are probably wondering, like, how do you do this? Like, how does this work? What happens when I come to you? So, like, walk us through. You have a new client. Walk us through what the procedure is.
Well, this kind of has three parts. So we assess with a scan, we unblock with the My Health device, and we correct with Infoceuticals, which are little drops of structured water, which we can get to all of those things. So basically, people fill out a little bit of a form for me. We have a chat, maybe about a 15-minute chat or more if someone's really struggling with some things. And then it's such a simple scan. So mainly we do have a hand scanner, but mainly now I do a voice scan, which means I don't have to be present with the client to do the voice scan. You could be anywhere in the world, and as long as we both have a connection to the internet, we can do a voice scan, which, coming from a speech pathology background, that energy is I'm very comfortable and familiar with that energy. And they've actually found that it is just as, if not a little bit more effective, or I guess effective is the word, to scan someone's energy field. Seems odd, but we're using your voice waves to scan, and it only takes 10 seconds.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, simply, it was just basically when I did it talking into my laptop.
Right, right.
Yep.
The
Yep. So
technology is amazing.
it is. It is. So there's a scan, and then you have a handheld technology. So let's talk a little bit about that. What does the handheld technology do?
Well, the handheld technology physically unblocks areas of concern. So I'm trying to get this up here. They
Mhm.
might be areas where you're having pain. You might have had an injury, a past injury. Um, it might be, I usually start with just kind of scanning the spine with this, like along the spine. You don't even have to really be touching, but you could just be skimming along the body. And it's biofeedback, scalar, PEMF, some of those things people are familiar with, but it has a lot of modalities in this one little device. And we did you for pain.
Right.
And the pain was something that had been bothering you. So the device literally finds the area of pain. And do you remember when it almost magnetized to your
Yeah. So
skin where it was painful?
yeah, I was going to tell people. So I knew, where the pain was. And so, when I came in there to work with you, I was explaining, it was like moderate knee pain. I would get it after walking or running, or if I was sitting in like the same position for long periods of time. And I assumed, okay, it's probably just due to my hamstrings are really tight. I do a lot of exercise, I lift a lot, and I'm not good at stretching. And so, it was like this, and it was getting worse and worse. And so when I came in to see you, the device, basically, I don't even know if I think you were touching me. I think you
Yes,
actually do
yes,
touch the skin. Yeah.
yes.
But you were just going over the knee, like on all different sides, the back part of it, the sides and whatnot. And I could absolutely feel, the only way I can describe it is it's like electricity, but kind of like a current running from my knee, like down all the way through into my foot. And
Right.
literally, I walked out of there and definitely noticed a difference. And today, okay, so when was that? 2 months ago?
Two
Easily
months
3 months
yes,
ago, maybe.
yes.
And I have had no pain since.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was
That's
pretty,
awesome.
it was pretty amazing. And you definitely know, I mean, you feel that something is happening, right? Like, because the way that
Right.
the machines work, you could definitely feel that there's energy, and but it's probably one of the coolest experiences I've ever had, to really like feel energy flowing through your body like that. Definitely,
It
definitely.
is.
So,
And injuries cause blockages of energy. Lots of things
yep.
cause blockages of energy. Emotional health does all of those kind of things, but an injury causes a really physical blockage. And so that releases it. It finds it and it releases it. And it resonates with your body's energy. So it gives and takes the appropriate amount of energy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it was awesome for me. I mean, I would recommend it 100 times over, because I definitely noticed the difference that day. And to date so far, no issues with that at all. So we're going to talk a lot more about NES health and all of the different things that you do. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we'll explore more with Mindy DiPietro. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Before we continue, I want to make sure everyone knows how to contact me. You can find me at www.drdianehayden.com, or at either of my two publications, www.naturalnutmeg.com and www.essentialnaples.com. And you can email Mindy for more information. And her email is Mindy, MINDYDIP at Comcast.net. That's COMCAST.net. So we are back, Mindy, and we were talking about, basically how amazing the NES Health is for pain. And there's a lot of other things I want to cover because I've had other experiences with it too. So we talked about basically the scan, how people do the scan. It's basically just by voice, and you can do it virtually anywhere in the world. So you can work with clients anywhere, really, even though you're based out of Naples, Florida, for sure. The handheld technology that we talked about, obviously somebody would have to be local to come see you
Yes.
to, work
Yes.
with you for that. And
They
then
can also purchase the device.
okay.
So if somebody's really serious about taking care of themselves, they can purchase the device. I can help them learn to, do it themselves, or have, a spouse or a loved one help them. And there are lots of other things that the device does as well.
Yep. Awesome. And then the third part of the whole system is the Infoceuticals, which are structured water. And they're, they're related to just about anything. Or organ systems. Will you talk to us a little bit about that? But I just know from what I've taken, what I had, and I'm going to talk a little bit about, what I saw with my scan and my results. But the Infoceuticals relate to all different physiological mechanisms in the body and issues, right?
Absolutely. And when we scan, we get information on all kinds of parameters. So it's about the energy source, your energy uses, your energetic systems in your body. So we call it a big body wave, or meridians. So sometimes there's a blockage along one of those energy waves or meridians, and the Infoceuticals are very helpful. If we can use the My Health device, we do, because that kind of physically helps it unblock. But the Infoceuticals are structured water. And I've known about some studies with water for a long time. And I think a lot of people who are watching this are going to know about these studies. So it was a scientist, Emoto, who put water from the same source in different vessels, and then assigned each of those vessels basically an emotion. And the structure of that water changed. So that I get chills every time I say that, because it's so interesting, because everything around us is quantumly connected, right? So that is similar to this. And I say that because a lot of people who are into natural health kind of, understand about these studies. And one other thing is, when you have tears, if they're tears of joy, sadness, grief, happiness, whatever they are, the structure of those tears actually changes.
Yeah.
So
And
if
you
you
can,
look,
you're
go,
probably going to say that you can
yep, go
actually
ahead.
see what it looks like when, I've read those studies, and I've looked at the actual pictures too, of what does the water look like when someone has thought happy, joyous thoughts, intentioned
Right,
that water with happy, joyous thoughts, versus what does water look like when someone has intentioned the water with negative thoughts.
right. And when you think about it, the percentage of our bodies that are water, which is high, probably 80 something percent, maybe more. Um, and if water takes on energy, think about our self-talk, think about how we talk to each other. So we are structuring the water in our bodies all the time by things we do, things we're exposed to in the environment, and things we say. So this all affects the water in your body. And the water in your body, there are actually 4 states of water, not 3. So we're used to water being, a solid in ice, a liquid in your water glass, and steam, right? But there is a 4th state, and it's a gel-like state. So it actually, when it's in that state, it's actually like a computer chip, and it can hold information. So the water in our bodies is much more like natural kinds of spring water, where they are structured for life. They are structured for biological success. And and it actually, that water holds electrons, and our body needs electrons to have the energy to go up to function in every single way. So this kind of is changing the structure of that water. The infoceuticals are little drops of water. They're just in any kind of little dropper, like just a very typical little bottle with a dropper. And you use a prescribed amount of those every day. And there are lots and lots of choices for infoceuticals. There are some that are just feel good infoceuticals. So if you feel like you have trouble experiencing a joyous day or having emotional stress relief during the day, or you need to kind of chill out, there are waters structured for that. And you take a prescribed amount of drops, kind of depending on your scan. Um, the drops also are correlated with spots like on the Chinese meridians. So like a liver or kidney or those kinds of things. Doesn't mean we're not diagnosing and we're not treating here. We're giving the body the information and the spurt of electricity that it needs to heal itself.
Yeah. I love that you got into the whole discussion about water and structured water and the different types of water. And I think it's probably going to be pretty enlightening to people to hear that there's 4 types of water. But also when you think about that 4th type of water, which is, like a gel, so to speak, that's what you
Yes,
find in plants. Like the kind of
exactly.
like water that would
Exactly.
be right from your fruit or from plants, or like, think about it when cut open a aloe vera plant. That's probably the easiest one to
Exactly.
visualize, right? Because
Exactly.
sometimes it's hard. We don't really think like there's so much water contained in plants, other than if it's like a juicy piece of fruit. But even any kind of vegetable, even if you cut a piece of lettuce or whatever, there's the liquid, there's a viscous fluid there somewhat. And that's that other type of water that we're talking about. And it's structured, and it's actually, that's what we should really be drinking and absorbing, or getting a lot of water
Right.
from fruits and vegetables, or, a structured water system, because that's more natural to the type of water that we have in our bodies, and it's more easily assimilated. And
And water carries the life force, and it's a conductor of the electricity that we need. So we need electrons. And all of these things help give us electrons or move electrons through our body. So our body really is like a big battery. And if we don't get enough electrons through grounding, drinking the right kind of water, even being in seawater or by the sea, we're absorbing electrons. And when we live in the city and we have EMFs all around us all the time, and we're under stress, we lose electrons. That all makes us lose electrons. So you can see how energy gets stuck maybe along that big body wave, because you just don't have enough. Your battery is running dry. And that structured water is really the life force. Without it, think about it. If a plant dries up, it's dead,
yep,
right? We
yeah,
all need that.
that's exactly right. And I don't know if probably many people have probably noticed this. I noticed it when I would drink just tap, even if it was filtered water or whatever, or even bottled water, and trying to get the amount of water that you're supposed to get in the day. I'm going to the bathroom every 5 minutes.
Right.
And finally, I bought a structured water system, and I noticed a drastic difference within like a couple of days of assimilating that I'm drinking the same amount of water, and I am not going to the bathroom anywhere near as much as I was. So
Right.
I'm understanding that I'm absorbing it better, because otherwise it's your body's not absorbing it and you're just filtering it out like, anything else. So
Right, because it's not carrying any energy with it. So if it's not carrying any energy, your body doesn't need it.
yep. Yep, that is exactly right. Exactly right. So, um, I want to talk about my experience with the scan. I mean, we talked a little bit about, I presented with a pain issue. Well, that was something obvious, like I could come to you and
Right.
say, okay, I have this issue with my knee, it's bothering me, blah blah blah. We knew about it. You knew exactly, how you were gonna what you were going to, how you're going to treat it essentially. And that was something that was pretty obvious. The scan, the things that came up were not obviously, you, like you said, you had no idea. And it was really fascinating for me because there were things that came up that I remembered that I had had issues with in the past. So we're going to talk about that when we come back from the short break that we're going to take. I'm just giving people a little teaser right now, but I'm excited to talk about that because it was pretty amazing. So you're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking more about NES Health with Mindy DiPietro. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. I am talking today with Mindy DiPietro of NES Health. If you want to find out more information or contact Mindy, you can email her at Mindy DIP. So that's MINDYDIP at Comcast.net, COMCAST.net. So before we broke, I was teasing people a little bit about my scan and what happened. So I want to just tell that story, and then we can kind of talk about related to things that what you saw, and basically how you decided what infoceuticals to give me. But and I just want to say there's so much to this scan. I mean, we're really only touching like the tip of the iceberg with all the things it does. And I'm going to talk about basically some of the physiological things that I saw, but let's not forget to just go through a little bit of all the other different components of things that it looks at for sure. So essentially with my scan, one of the big things that came up was a blockage or a sluggishness of energy around my liver. And you would never have known that. And we never, I wasn't complaining about anything. I didn't tell you that I had any kind of like high liver levels. And currently right now I don't. But what's interesting is 20 years ago, I had unusually high liver enzymes. And the doctors could never figure it out. The only thing they could think of was that I was on a particular type of birth control that was causing it. And I went off of that type of birth control. And, within like a year or two, they went back to normal, and they've been normal ever since. So no one really knew what, maybe that was it. Who knows? No one could really tell me what was wrong. And luckily it didn't end up being, anything serious, obviously. But I found it fascinating that came up, right? Because there's still energy around it.
Right.
That around my liver. There's not necessarily right now anything physiologically wrong with my liver, but we're looking at the energy around the liver. And so this, the scan saw that there was some type of whatever you want to call it, blockage, sluggishness, some way that the energy was being, impacted around my liver for sure.
Right. And it could have been some sort of like minor scar tissue in there. It could have been stress that you held from having that issue in the past. So it's scanning, it's scanning all kinds of parameters. So it's scanning your emotional well-being at that moment. So the scan is like a picture of what's happening in your bioenergetic field at that moment that we take the scan. So it's important that if we're going to do infoceuticals, we like to get you on within the next few days, because it's that picture. It's what your body is asking for bioenergetically. And for some reason, even though this issue happened a long time ago, your body maybe struggles in that area bioenergetically a little more than it struggles in other ways. Maybe your body has to work a little harder to have a healthy pattern in that area of your body. I have seen where it's picked up issues that people have had countless times. And it's not diagnosing, but it is saying where your body is asking for more energy. It assesses your diet and nutrition. It assesses sensitivities. Very, very interesting here in Florida. Many times people come up with sensitivities around herbicides and pesticides. And, we know it's really hard to avoid those exposures. Even people who eat like a completely clean organic diet, you can't really go anywhere where you're not exposed to herbicides and pesticides. When, I park my car and I walk into the house, there are, if they're not being sprayed somewhere around me, they're blowing in the wind. So we really can't get away from those. It assesses a lot of mind body issues. It assesses emotions. Very, very interesting. And it gives us several levels. So it gives us white, green, yellow, orange, or purple. So those are the levels. And when we first do a scan, usually when I work with someone, I do at least 2 scans. It takes me about an hour to review that scan. It takes only 10 seconds to do it, but it takes about an hour to review. And often it will take like 20 minutes to an hour to review it with the patient, because there is a lot of information. It's actually almost overwhelming, isn't it? It's so
Mm-hmm.
much for one scan. It even goes into life journey. Some things that I've found, the people that have pain, 100% of the people I treat with pain get some improvement. Now, some chronic things, or if it's an injury, like I have someone I treat that has a torn rotator cuff, not ready for surgery yet, but really, really bothers him. So I treat it maybe 3 or 4 times in a row, sometimes, like 3 or 4 days in a row. Then he'll go, oh, I'm fine for a while. A few days, he'll come back and he'll say, I'm ready for another treatment. Everyone has had some relief from it. Someone I treated recently had a super chronic and acute issue in her hip. And she has been to the doctors for a couple of years. They've been doing cortisone shots. They've been like probably $1 million worth of testing on it. I worked with her one time, the first time she didn't have pain in over 2 weeks. And that's the first time in 2 years she didn't have pain in that hip. So there really is a lot to it. The emotional standards, are you dealing with grief? Lots of people don't have time to process their emotions, or they don't even have the skills to process emotions sometimes. And when you start asking, it comes up on the scan, you start asking about something like that, then they will say, yeah, this happened to me and I've never really gotten over it. It gets to very specific organ systems that energy is working around. And very, very interesting, because sometimes just one treatment can change it. It does brain health as well. So it kind of scans the brain as a body system. And so the brain and the central nervous system. And very, very interesting. It really gets down to the energy around certain types of cells. So growth cones or synapses, those kinds of things. And the interesting thing is that is treatable. Tinnitus drives people crazy. And I've worked with a couple people who have tinnitus and they've gotten relief, maybe not, complete relief, but they have gotten relief. And that is just one of the issues that it's hard to treat. It's hard to find the reason for it. And if you can just do it in this really non-invasive way, I think it's absolutely the best way. You can literally realign your chakras with this. There's a 27-minute cycle. Sometimes when I'm working with patients at the spa, I find if they're one of my NES Health patients as well, I'll just turn on a cycle, maybe a biocell cycle, or a just general well-being cycle, or general physical rejuvenation cycle. It just needs to be within arm's reach of them, and we can just let it be there and kind of realign things while they're having their other treatments.
Wow, that's amazing. One of
It's
the other
really cool.
things, one of the things we didn't mention yet that I thought was really fascinating, and also to me very compelling about how accurate the system is my particular scan also showed that my polarity field was disrupted. And so you explained to me that what that means is, like, if you're traveling a lot, frequent travel can basically knock our polarity off kilter. If we've been flying, or we're exposed to electromagnetic, radiation, or our electromagnetic fields are being, affected because we're up in an airplane or whatever. And so funny, I had actually just flown 4 times over the 2 weeks prior to taking the scan. I think I maybe had flown 4 or 5 days, maybe not even. right before I took the scan. And so, normally I'm not doing a lot of flying. I'm normally in Florida for, like 6 months, and then I'm in Connecticut for 6 months. But coincidentally, it was like occurring right around the time when we do fly back for holidays and stuff like that. So I'm like, okay, wow, that's interesting.
Right. It assesses your vertical axis, your horizontal axis, your polarity. And one that I think is super interesting right now is big fields. And so big fields is how your body's energy interacts with the energy of the earth, and also geopolitical energy. So people are really having, I'm finding that a lot of people are having issues with big fields. And if your vertical axis is off, you might feel a little dizzy. If you're having issues with big fields, you might feel a little dizzy. You can also reset using the My Health device. You can reset your circadian rhythms or your biological clock. So if you're traveling, you can reset it between now and when you travel. So when you go, you won't have jet lag.
Wow.
Isn't that
That's
cool?
huge.
I
Yeah.
know. I
Yeah.
know.
Totally, totally huge, because that'll knock you out for days,
Right.
if
And a
not
lot of
longer.
these things, right. It assesses sleep. It assesses so many parameters. Amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's funny that you mentioned geopolitical. Oh my gosh. Like,
Right. Right.
how many people, is there anybody who's like not being affected by
Not
geopolitical
that I can tell
stress?
right now. Everyone is. Everyone is, and it just seems to be getting, um, it seems to be affecting people in a pretty negative way. So I think if there's anything that you can do to not absorb that energy from the world, you know,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah,
it's
definitely.
good.
Get off Facebook. Oh
And
gosh.
it's
I
hard.
mean,
When you have a business, it's hard, isn't it?
it is hard. Yeah. I mean, a lot of times we have to be on it for our businesses for sure. And just
Right.
even think about like just the state of affairs of the world for the past 2 years with COVID and lockdowns, and, people's stress levels and all this kind of upheaval, whether it was upheaval because, you were sick, or somebody in your family was sick, or you lost a loved one to COVID, or your job changed, like even something simple like going from working in an office to working at home. People don't realize like how big a transition that is and how it can affect you on an emotional level.
Well, and our bodies literally, our energy is exchanged between other people when we're around them. So obviously that can work either way. So you can have somewhat of an absorbing effect of absorbing someone's energy that you might not want. But we need to be around people, because that's another way for us to exchange energy and move energy through our own body systems. And I do think people during this whole last couple years, they were so lonely and stressed. And even if they were at work, think about it. I think about the kids in school, and from being a speech pathologist, it just
Mhm.
breaks my heart, because we have children who are 3 years old who have never seen their teachers' faces,
I know.
nor have they ever seen, from a speech pathology standpoint and a language development standpoint, they're not seeing that teacher pronounce words.
Right.
And I've even heard that there is a lot of weakness in children's jaws and articulating muscles right now because of masks.
Oh,
But that being said, they also didn't probably get the full effect of the energy from those teachers that they needed during that time, or their
exactly.
friends.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right. We're going to be back. We're going to take a short break right now. You're listening to the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. When we come back, we'll learn more about NES Health with Mindy DiPietro. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. We're back on the Dr. Diane Show with me, Dr. Diane Hayden, and I am talking today with Mindy DiPietro of NES Health. You can learn more about Mindy and email her at Mindy DIP, that's MINDY DIP at Comcast.net, COMCAST.net. And you can learn more about me at www.drdianehayden.com. So one thing we're going to move on to talking about gut health. But before we do that, I know you were telling me something really interesting and new from NES Health called the X39 patches. So
Yes.
what are those and what do you use them for?
These are actually from a company called LifeWave. So very, very interesting. And they were developed th- when they were looking at Navy SEALs who were in submarines for a long time. They were looking for ways to keep them awake. Obviously, their circadian rhythms are all messed up because there's no day or night. Areas exchanged in a different way, and they were using stimulants to to keep them awake. But this is bioenergy as well. And this little patch, this one usually I stick on the back of my neck. It can be stuck on your abdomen as well. But what it does is it reflects light back into your body. So it takes your body heat, reflects it back as infrared light, and then it creates copper peptides, which create stem cells.
Wow.
So that is just an amazing chain reaction. It is, you do nothing but put it on your neck. They help with sports performance, they help with focus, they help with everything energetic in your body. They help with pain, they help with sleep, they help with your day night cycles, your circadian rhythms. And this company actually has a lot of kinds of patches. So they have one for skin health, they have a glutathione patch. And one thing I love about that is you're not ingesting glutathione. It just helps your body, you stick the patch on, and it helps your body produce its own glutathione. This is one of the things that changed my life the most. Just not having aches and pains. I hardly ever have an ache and pain anymore. When I was in my 30s, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and I was told that, and I was having all of those symptoms, but I was told that I had to go on Enbrel for the rest of my life, which is a biologic immune suppressant. And
Oh,
if I didn't, it didn't end well with my rheumatologist because he said if I didn't go on that, I would be in a wheelchair by the time I was 50, and I was going to be dismissed from his practice. And I said, well, I will for sure be in a wheelchair if I stay in your practice because I'm the only one in the whole office that's not in a wheelchair. So thank you. And that just also started me on a journey of figuring out how to fix those issues, right? So I went to a lot of holistic health practitioners because I had exhausted every possible test, and this was their last resort to go on a pretty intense medicine for the rest of my life. Not saying that it's a bad medicine or that people shouldn't do it who want to do it, but I just didn't feel like that was the answer for me. And I just found these things, they just, you attract what you're looking for, right? So
mhm.
I was looking for solutions, and these solutions have just kind of rained down on me over the years. And this one is just a complete game changer, as is NES Health, but this is very, very, very simple. So when I see you next, I'll give you a couple that you can try.
Yeah.
Um, copper peptides are great for skin. And having been in the skin business for a long time, people spend a lot of money on their skin health and making, correcting sun damage and all of those kind of things. So anything that you can do to keep your cells active and producing new collagen and new elastin, it's like an insurance policy for your treatments.
Yeah, absolutely. For sure. For sure. And yeah, I mean, because think about how many people spend all this money on skincare treatments and they're not supporting their body, they're not putting enough things into their body to support maintaining that. It's almost
Right,
like, well, you're just
right.
putting, you're kind of just putting a band-aid on it. It's not, you're not going to be able to benefit, get the best benefit from these treatments if your body can't support it. So that makes
Right. And
perfect sense.
you would never buy a new car and never wash it or wax it or protect it or change the oil or the tires, right? You would never do that. You spend your money on the car, you want to maintain it. So all of these things not only help us maintain their body, but they help our body function better, we're happier, we're able to move. Some people are in so much pain that they can't move, and movement is another way that your body creates energy.
Yep. Awesome. Well, I know one other thing we're going to talk about before we finish, because I know you're passionate about this, but you teach people a lot about the gut health triad and
Yes.
basically about leaky gut. And many people may know what that is, but let's just talk a little bit about, why you're passionate about that and what how do you teach people about what it is and how to treat it?
Well, through NES, I have been finding that people have gut issues, right? They complain about gut issues. About 80% they say don't have really an intact gut lining right now. And and the inside of our digestive tract is actually skin. So it's the way our bodies develop. It's the skin is on the inside of our digestive tract and on the outside of our body. So, imagine when you have something going on with your skin, you can see what's wrong, but when it's in your digestive tract, you can't. And because of our diet and because of GMOs and all of those kinds of issues, probably farming practices that are really great for feeding mass populations, but they're not always the best for our individual health. So because of that, gut health and skin health, because they're really both the same things, are interconnected. And a lot of times people were coming to me with skin issues, and I work with a company that actually can do DNA testing and produce vitamins that are specifically made for you. They're a combination of 1 in 400 million people. Well, they've come out with a gut health solution. And there were a lot of gut health solutions out there, but they were very complicated. And this is just 3 products. You mix one in a drink, and you take 2 pills. Gut health is related to your mood. It's related to your skin health. It's related to the health of every organ system, and it's related to general inflammation. And I think a lot of the things that I'm seeing when I'm doing these scans and the My Health device they're all really very related to inflammation. So how can we work with all of the body systems and help prevent future problems? And gut health is just huge.
Yeah, it
So
is. It
it's the
is.
gut health triad. It's 3 products.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, I think that we're hearing so much about it now, just in terms of how it affects everything, the gut brain connection, I think it's so important. And I think more and more people are, now paying more attention to, what am I putting in my body and GMOs and all that kind of stuff. So this has been
Right.
really, really amazing. And I'm sure that people will have more questions for you and want to reach out to you. So again, this is Mindy DiPietro from NES Health, and you can reach her at Mindy DIP. That's MINDY DIP at Comcast.net. Thank you so much for being with us today, Mindy. It was a pleasure.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure.
Awesome. And I want to thank all of you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show. Please join me the first and third Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern, 8 a.m. Pacific. Next time on the Dr. Diane Show, we'll be discussing more about the power of thoughts and beliefs and the impact they have on your life. Have a great week, and I'll see you back here next time. Thank you for tuning into the Dr. Diane Show, revolutionary expansion of mind, body, and soul with me, Dr. Diane Hayden. Tune in every Thursday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on transformationtalkradio.com. Center your thoughts on what you want and shut the door on every suggestion of fear, worry, or lack from your own consciousness or the consciousness around you. Once you master that, everything is possible. To learn more about me, Dr. Diane, and receive a free digital subscription of my magazine, visit naturalnutmeg.com.